Hey there, it's Kat, and in this video I want to talk about using your moon calendar for tracking. And I have one, as I said in one of the previous videos, I work with two copies of my moon calendar. I have a beautiful one that I keep flat, hanging up on my wall in my studio where I am, and then I have a folded one that is in my bedroom that lives there, and you can see it has a little letter pen. Happens to be my favorite pen because they have really tiny points in their felt tip. And I tri-fold my calendar like this, and you can see that there are a few red markings on it. So I did not create a guideline to symbols on this calendar because I have been using a moon calendar for maybe 6 or 7 years now. Not a super long time, but long enough that I now know what my symbols are. If I ever make up a new symbol, I will jot it down, and I'll either find a space down here where all the symbols are, or sometimes I'll put it up on one of the corners. That this is the calendar, though, that is a tool for me. So I can write on it or do whatever I want and not go, oh no, it didn't make it really pretty or something like that. So and so what I do, let me see if I can just like hone in on this section here. I'm not going to tell you what all the symbols are because that's the whole point of a moon calendar, is it's personal to you. But I don't mind sharing that this happens to be when I was having my my menstrual cycle, my moon cycle, and I use dots to indicate it. And when it's a double dot like this that's stacked, it's really heavy. This is regular, this is regular. I'm kind of, maybe this is TMI, but I am kind of perimenopausal right now. And so it's a little bit more erratic, but there are times when, the cycle is just starting. And so I just do a little teeny tiny dot so that way I can see. Because for women, when we're tracking our cycles, it goes from first day to first day. So I often count that day where I just was like, I'm pretty sure it's starting right now, where you got moon drops. And then, but you can see I have some other symbols here. This one up here, I will share with you. If I can get can I get my finger over to it? It's working backwards. Okay, so January 8th, 2020, this was my wedding day. And so that was a fun one. Just like every once in a while, I like marking those big celebration days. For me, I like them to be really big, like big deal days, like something significant happened that shifted with me on the inside. And so I'll mark them with the series of stars. And I usually have like one of those a year, it's kind of interesting. You can literally, here's the tricky thing. You can literally track whatever you want to track. As I mentioned in the last video, though, is that it's nice to track something that you either have a story around, or that can help you be more proactive or give you some understanding, or that feels totally random and out of control to you. My cycle, my moon cycle, has always felt totally random and out of control to me. And it's so interesting to track it, as it's surprisingly regular. So that was very, very interesting. And I'm not saying it didn't have any irregularities, but it was way more regular than I thought it was. And once I had it down on paper, I was like, all right, pretty much follows the pattern that, they say it will follow. One thing, let me see if I've had this even this year. Maybe this has been a very, very good, lucky year, is I am looking for this symbol that I do sometimes, which is a big lightning bolt. I do not see it this year. That is amazing, because when I have the big lightning bolt, that means I've had uncontrollable cramps, and literally uncontrollable. It often means I'm extremely sick, doubled over, have to do a day in bed type of thing. And I used to feel like I couldn't do anything during my cycles because I had such extreme pain. And when I started tracking it, I realized it's actually about 4 days a year that I have that debilitating pain. And that allowed me to take back that story and not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm at the mercy of having a female body that goes through these cycles. I can handle 4 days a year of pain out of 365. I'm not saying I'd wish it on anybody, but it allowed me to feel much more empowered and not going, oh, here I am again, losing another day where I have to lay in bed. Now, you might have pain that you want to track, and your pain is very different. I've had girlfriends with migraines, and they track their migraines on the moon calendar. And you just have a little symbol. You can decide, if you need to fluctuate it in some way, or if you just want to mark, like, this was a migraine day, and what days that you have a migraine, or what days that you have whatever pain it might be, like your hip acts up, or you have really bad arthritis pain, or just anything, what it might be. But it's more one of those things that comes back, and you have to get curious about it. So that can be an amazing thing to track. I had one year a few years back where I tracked self-judgment, where I had, every once in a while, I would have one of those days where I would get up and I was like literally just waking up and I hated myself already. I mean, I hadn't had tea or coffee, seen if it was sunny outside or what. And that is so hard. And if you struggle with that, know that a lot of people do, because I've talked about this a lot. And it is a really sad reality sometimes of being a human. I don't know if other beings go through that, but I sincerely hope not. But just the self-judgment comes flooding in, or whether it's regrets or just whatever energies that are coming up, I decided to mark them on my calendar. I had a little symbol for it. And in that year, I learned by marking it down. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just was like, all right, I'm tired of feeling this way. Let me at least take an action, put a little X and mark, like, X is mean. I'm judging myself today. Just having that bit of awareness and being willing to look at it did help to start dissipating it a little bit, to make it separate from myself. So it wasn't just like, oh, I hate myself, and now I just hate myself more. It was more like, okay, today I'm hating myself. Yesterday I wasn't hating myself. Hopefully tomorrow I won't be hating myself. But this is something that just kind of showed up. So I'm going to put a little mark there, because I don't know if I actually have control over this or not, but this is here. So I did that for a whole year. Or close to a year, enough where I had many, many months that on one calendar was tracking it. And it was the most bizarre thing, because they all fell during the same astrological sign of the moon. When the moon was passing through Virgo, that was true for me. So I am one of those mercurial creatures, because I am a Gemini, that's my sun sign, but my moon and rising signs are in Virgo. Now I have my astrological chart in front of me, nor do I need to at this moment, but I have a lot of signs that are all ruled by Mercury. And so I feel particularly under the influence of the opportunity for self-judgment, criticism, or perfectionism, all of that when the moon is passing through Virgo. Luckily, I don't feel that when the sun is in Virgo, because that'd be a bummer to feel that way every day for like 30 days. So that just helped me tune in and kind of break down that story. So if I'm having one of those days, now I don't mark it anymore. It's not something I've chosen to track anymore, but I can glance at the moon calendar. It's not always true now. It's not like every time the moon passes through Virgo, I don't go, oh boy, you better prepare yourself. You're going to be hating on yourself. It's just, I have a little bit more compassion of going, I wonder if there's some other influence at play. And so I'll peek at my moon calendar, see what sign it's in, just kind of gives me a little respite of a few minutes of like, is there something else that could be going on? So, when you're trying to come up with these generative ideas of what would serve you and serve your life intentions, serve, sorry, I'm getting really tongue-tied, serve your journey, serve the type of person that you want to be, of what generative things to track. You know, it's generally, unfortunately, going to be tracking, you know, negative things, bad habits, but you can also track positive things. Like I said, I mark like fabulous days on my calendar, so I remember that they're there. So don't feel like you have to only track the negative things, but those are the things that I usually want to see the most change in. And then I will periodically mark off something fabulous. So I do track some positive things, you know, like particularly special connections with my partner and things like that. So I don't only track negative things, don't get me wrong, but those are the things that I'm often trying to gather information about so that I can make some proactive improvements. So, you know, maybe you have a cycle of binging, or if you shop in that type of way or something, that you could have a little mark for that. Like, today is a day where I really just wanted to be shopping, or today is a day that I just wanted to only stream stuff on Netflix. I mean, we all know there's so many reasons why stuff like that might want to happen. You can be tired, you could have overworked, yada, yada. But this is another way of just going like, is there something else at play that I'm under the influence of and not realizing? Now it's up to you if you would want to track something that happens every day. I am not that type of person. So that is just a reality for me, as I go for more of these other little patterns that happen to me or come up for me in my body and in my life. But you could track something like your sleep patterns and have little indicators. You could track your mood, you know, and it's just, for me, there's so much fluctuation in those things that's more like where if I have several days in a row where I haven't slept well, I'll kind of like look at them in calendar and just be like, what's been going on? And, you know, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, duh, full moon is happening. And, you know, there's other astrological stuff that this calendar doesn't go into that you might just like do some poking around and be like, well, could be something like that. Could be I'm having stress. I mean, stress could be another possible thing to track. You just want to make sure, does it seem possible for you to come up with the types of symbols? You don't want to track just to gather endless amounts of information. I don't use a moon calendar like I use some of my apps on my phone. Am I drinking enough water? Or have I, you know, held up my commitment to write a blog post? You know, like these are little goals and things that I have for myself. And I have little apps where I might say, yes, I exercised today, or something like that. Whereas the moon calendar is like, if I can't figure out how to kind of rewrite the story or what's going on, or I'm curious, is there some sort of pattern that I am just not witnessing? You know, like it can be really powerful to track a couple of things. Like say if you're a woman and you want to track your menstrual cycle and if you get migraines, you can, you know, or maybe it's also like food binging or shopping or something. Are there times in your cycle where it's bringing on a migraine, or times in your cycle when your boundaries are let down and you feel more like eating a certain way or shopping, or you know, or anything that feels maybe compulsive and a little bit out of your control but comes up a decent amount. That can be a lovely thing to track, and to track concurrently to see, oh, it's, you know, I'm not saying, oh, the moon's responsible for all of these things. I'm just saying, like, is there anything else there? And, you know, what is that? So I'm hoping that those ideas help get you started with tracking. It can be really fun to track if you're witchy, like track your witchy practices of charging crystals, doing spells, making a mark of like, I started a spell here, and here's where I started seeing results. Some of that stuff though, I just track in a journal, you know, and so it's up to you if you would want to translate it to this type of thing. But know that make it personal to you. You want it to be for you and to be useful for you. And like I said, like just feel free to like write up here, excuse me, in a corner what the symbols are. And you don't want to, I mean, I'm totally curious how you're using it. Are you a daily person where you just have this like and you wake up every morning and you just see, is there something that I want to track? Or, you know, at the end of the day before you climb into bed, is there something to mark? Are you checking with it daily? Or are you tracking more those things that happen occasionally, like what I'm tracking, so that for some reason when they happen, I remember to mark it down? So I think everyone's a little bit different that way, whether you need to be checking in all the time every day and saying, is there something to write down? It becomes part of your evening ritual. Or do you have um, a little like ping that goes off in your head that's like, oh yeah, this thing's happening. Let me go mark that on my moon calendar. That's the way my brain works. And I've learned our brains do not all work the same. So I'd love to know what's helpful for you. And if you have any questions about tracking or how to track something, let me know. This is like some of my favorite stuff. And um, it's interesting to break down how to track something. You know, I think some of the physical things can be obvious because we have this physical reminder and we're going, oh yeah, yeah. But the emotional things, like it took me probably a year to figure out that I should be tracking those days that I don't feel good about myself, you know? And I mean, it's been a really long time before something like that's thrown me in like a deep, dark depression or made me feel like sketchy about not stable in my life and in myself. So I have those feelings, but I do feel stable in myself and in my life and in being here and with this gift. But it would, when those feelings would still come up, it made me curious of like, oh, they don't go away just because I feel like I have a really good life and I'm generally happy. They still appear. And that was nice to see that too, of going like, right, they still are existing in amidst a really great life, that those things can still happen. And that was nice to know too, to break down that story of that, you know, happy people never really feel that way or anything. So you know, see if you can work with the moon and the moon cycles for breaking down any of your stories or giving yourself a little added layer of information about your physical experiences, your cycles. And you know, it could also be cool to track activities, like I mentioned, whether it's magical activities or like my husband when he's doing ceramics firings, things like that. It could be cool to just track when you do something and then maybe even have like a little symbol for how you felt about it. So um, I personally haven't tracked it for things outside myself. You know, I haven't tracked like when it's smoky days or cloudy days or anything like that. That would be a little bit too much for me and not as much a useful tool. I do like using it as a personal development tool. So on that note, I hope you find a way to make it useful and fun for you. It could be cool to see if like a family was doing this together, making any notes, or you could partner with journaling or anything like that. But I hope it is a beautiful tool for you that you enjoy using. And if you're blocked in how to do it, just reach out to me. It's one of my favorite things to brainstorm ideas, help get people back in motion. And I feel like no problem is too big to figure out a way to tackle it, deal with it, or observe it, something like that. So happy moon calendaring and tracking. I will see you soon.